Welcome to It's Kelsey, where we talk about rediscovering your inner roar.
Welcome. I wanted to talk about finding your authentic voice because I feel like we aren't really taught that in school. Instead, we're more so taught to suppress how we really feel and conform to everyone else. So today, I just really wanted to talk about the 3 steps to express yourself more freely and authentically. And if you've been here in the past, I'm so happy to have you. If you are new here, I'm Kelsey, and I'm passionate about helping women to discover their inner voice and live authentically. Before we get started, please take a quick moment to like and subscribe, and let's get started. As a coach, I specialize in empowering people to help them break free of limiting beliefs, express themselves more freely, and create a life full of purpose and fulfillment. Now, I wanted to read something quickly to you. It's from a book by Brianna Wiest. I'm just going to clip that there. Hopefully this works. It is called The Pivot Year. So I have found this book really, really helpful because it's just a real quick reading each day, and it really just gives you a perspective to work on that day. And today's was a pretty big one, but I wanted to read it anyways. Heavy feelings are not always asking for your intervention. They are asking for your attention. When you come into full awareness of what you feel, the feeling will gradually release itself. You participate in your suffering when you take action to delay, avoid, resist, or fracture that awareness of your feeling states and end up stuck beneath them. You will probably feel really reactive when you start to pay attention to the sensations going on inside your body. When you begin to come into awareness of each one that makes you uncomfortable, you're going to want to jump to fix, change, or do something that will make the feeling go away. But it doesn't though, because the feeling isn't the things you're fixing, changing, or distracting yourself with. The feeling is in you. It is not asking to put on some physical form within the world, but simply to be metabolized, processed, and eventually turned into an unconscious wisdom that will guide you forward in many more powerful than you can even perceive from where you currently stand. So this kind of guided me into realizing that you can often change all of these things on the outside, but that's not going to truly change how you feel inside. And so you're going to keep getting the same results because that feeling inside is creating the outside view. I know it seems kind of wild, but that's why a lot of us procrastinate. That's why a lot of us will put off things, is not necessarily because we just don't want to do them, but by doing them means that we have to give in to that feeling. That sometimes that's a feeling of self-doubt. Sometimes that's a feeling of low self-worth or low self-esteem. Sometimes it's just a feeling of thinking that if you put it off, that you're not really putting it off. You're like, it's a reversed mindset. This just really is like, wow, yeah, I guess you really aren't just like stuck in that feeling because of that decision. It's more a deep feeling within. For that feeling within, I really have worked on inner work and deeper healing in that way. And that includes a lot of journaling. So that kind of leads into the first step. The first step that I wrote down is reflection. And that usually is done by journaling. I do sometimes do it by like a voice note, because I find that the voice note is quite helpful. So that is always a great thing. Some of the things that I have found very helpful in that is to write down a few questions to guide you, because I don't know about you, but if you open up a journal and you're like, I'm going to journal today, and you haven't ever journaled, or you haven't journaled in years, it's quite daunting looking at that big page and you're like, what do I write? Oh my God, I'm so scared. So one of the tips that I really appreciated was going to get a journal, and then also getting journal prompts or finding questions. And I actually wrote down a few questions to help you get started. So some of the questions that I wrote down were, what are your values? What brings you joy? What fears are holding you back? Now that generally gives you a good idea of really what's going on deep within you, and it also gives you a starting point for your values and really what sparks that inner child in you as well, because that inner child is where that joy comes from. I found self-reflection was really hard for me at first. I think some of the resistance was just the fact that I didn't really want to dive into that. That was the resistance. The resistance was like, the moment I write that down means the moment I have to deal with it. Yeah, it feels big. But writing it down is going to give a starting point. It doesn't mean you have to fix it that day, that year, or anything. And it honestly doesn't mean really that you need to fix it. Because that would say that you're broken, and you're not. You're whole. You're completely worthy of everything. And a lot of times we just think that we aren't. But you truly are, without any of this work or fixing, as you will. So self-reflection is one of the biggest things that I think is important. It will also give you a way of reflecting back at where you were in previous years or months, depending on how often you journal. I'm not very consistent with my journaling. I often journal for a couple months and then almost like fall off for a little while, and then I'll reconnect. There's no perfect way of journaling. If you journal every day, that's amazing. If you journal like even once a week or once a month, that's still a way of tracking your progress. I feel like even just that little bit of tracking for yourself is so beneficial, because I really don't remember like what I ate for lunch yesterday half the time, or even like what I had for dinner. So it's a wonderful way to just track it, and you don't even need to read back a lot of the time. A lot of the time I just find that writing it down really releases those feelings or releases that attachment to it. And letting go is another big thing that I feel is helpful in this. That could be another video for sure. Letting go. So I think that segues us into the next step. The next step that I feel is a wonderful one is boundaries, and creating boundaries. Because boundaries, once you've figured out your goals and your values and what brings you joy, having those boundaries is going to help guide you into that lane of your passion and your purpose and what you're really wanting to do. And the focus on boundaries isn't a bad thing. A lot of people put like a bad labeling on boundaries, but realistically, it's just a way to help you focus in on the most important things to you. Because if there's something in your life that's toxic, or if there's something in your life that really isn't serving you, say partying as you're growing up and you're realizing that drinking every weekend is not really contributing to how you want to be and how you want to show up in your life. Having a boundary of saying no to a friend to go out that night, or having a boundary of distancing yourself from friends or family that are very toxic, is all going to play into having healthier boundaries. And honestly, it doesn't even need to be revolving around that either. Like having a boundary of self-care. So say every Sunday night you do self-care, you go have a bath, you do your face routine, whatever it is that you love self-care, that is also a boundary in a sense. It's a boundary for yourself, saying like, this is my Sunday evening routine and I'm not going to break it because for myself, I want to do this. And that builds confidence and that builds self-esteem and the self-love. And all of these things will start to pull out your authenticity because we want to lean into ourselves to have that authenticity. That really leads us into the third, practicing vulnerability. Practicing vulnerability sounds daunting, or at least it did to me, because it makes you feel like you're just showing everyone in the world of who you are and like any of your scary things you didn't want to share. But really being vulnerable is actually just being true to how you feel. So for the longest time, I would never speak up or say how I felt about anything to people because I was always like that people pleaser. I wanted to make sure no one was like hurt by what I said, or that like, I could help people. So instead of just saying like, this thing upset me, or, I really feel this way, or whatever it is, I didn't feel like it was something that I wanted to share. And that just isn't being really true to yourself. I feel like that did set me back quite a while because I wasn't expressing my truest self. And when you're not expressing your truest self, you lose a lot of your self-esteem and your self-confidence because you're just putting on a big mask in front of your face all day long. When you come down, you often break down. So having that vulnerability also lets you have other people connect with you. It lets people in to show them that you can connect with them. Often people think that vulnerability is actually like a bad thing. People think, oh, you're being vulnerable, like that's scary, that's bad. But it actually cultivates connection with each other. And by allowing yourself to be seen is what vulnerability really is. So once you allow yourself to be seen, all of these things start to connect, and you start to connect with others who have similar things. You start to realize that it's not as scary. Basically, just practicing self-care will create that connection, allowing yourself to be seen. That's honestly what plays in, is a lot of times you're not being your authentic self. And so you're not connecting with others. You're feeling very isolated. And then when you're isolated, you're not being able to be your authentic self because you're not expressing yourself at all. So get rid of things that drain you and start focusing inward on those things that really bring you the most joy and peace. So if you're ready to step into your power, connect with your truest self, and live a life aligned with your purpose, I invite you to click on the application to work with me in the description so that we can see if we would align to work together, and I will reach out to you personally. Thank you all for taking the time to watch this. I hope that these 3 points helped you in knowing some of the steps to finding your authentic voice. I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and know that you are always worthy. You always are. I love you. See you next week.